Welcome to the Limitless Ones podcast. I'm very excited about today's guest, Tom Swales, a dear friend of mine, owner and founder of Concept of Movement. Tom, how are you doing, man?
Good, my brother. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
I'm excellent. No, thank you very much for coming on. You're always looking healthy. I'm always excited to see all the videos with your children, with your wife, because you guys live a very fun lifestyle. You guys have a lot of fun out doing a little snowboarding in the backyard, and it's fun seeing the children live the lifestyle that I know you want them to live. And they're climbing and moving and eating healthy, and it looks like you guys are having a lot of fun. So,
yeah, and the one thing I learned as a parent is if we can't tell our kids to do something because they won't listen, but if they see you doing it and enjoying it, it's the environment that dictates what they do. So
100%.
Kids are a reflection of who we are, and if they see us, snowboarding and climbing stuff and playing and finding joy in things, they will also do the same. Whether it's the same thing that you're doing, but hopefully they find it in something else that they just truly love doing.
I think that's a really good way to just simplify parenting. People always say there's not a book on parenting. There's actually thousands of them out there, but I think that's the number one advice. Just do what you would want your children to do. Live a healthier life, practice being a happier person and clearing your thoughts and all those things. And they're just going to follow behind because they want to do just what you're doing. You smoke cigarettes and drink and complain. That's probably what they're going to do.
Yeah, no, they're a direct reflection of what we are, either what they perceive externally or how we feel internally. And kids will pick up, mom and dad are anxious or stressed out. They're going to pick that up, and they're also going to feel stressed out and anxious because parents are their we're their building block, we're their support system. And if we start to kind of go off the rails, well, what are we teaching our kids?
100%, man. And I think this is a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about today as we get near the end of the podcast is going to be something that I think parents and just people can implement in their life to lead a healthier life. So tell us about Concept of Movement. I know everything about it. Everybody that lives in Barrie knows about Concept of Movement, but some of these listeners have no idea. So tell us a little bit about what it is that you do at Concept of Movement.
Yeah, so my wife Kylie and I, we started it just about 8 years ago, just over 8 years ago, and I'll give you a little logistics. It's a 5,000 square foot health physiotherapy, health and wellness facility. We have physio, massage, movement, strength coaches. We do acupuncture, IMS. We do all the modalities and whatnot. But the idea behind it was to really teach. It's a facility where every client coming in as a student, they learn about not just what their pain is, but why they have it, what may have precipitated it, what old injuries may have kind of created this compensation and this new trauma, but then also give them the tools to empower them to look, if we create some self-awareness in these things that you're doing, you can fix your current problem. So we meld in the manual therapy as well as a ton of the education components and then the movement therapy side of things that really locks it in place. Because if people are moving poorly, it doesn't matter how much good manual therapy you do, people will feel better, but they don't get better. You do a manipulation or you needle something or you stretch something and you're like, yeah, it feels good. Great. Well, we change the input. We put the body into a state of relaxation to learn something new. But if you don't teach it something new, it comes back. All of a sudden, 2-3 days later, that rib came out or things got tight again. Well, no kidding, because we didn't teach your brain to move differently. So we really meld the manual therapy, the advanced manual techniques in with the movement techniques. And then that equates into higher performance. So people come in with an expectation of, I just want to be able to walk up and down the stairs with my knees not creaking and bend over and pick up my kid. And then all of a sudden now they've got new goals of, well, now I can deadlift 200 pounds and I can kettlebell swing and I can sprint up a hill. So we kind of push their expectation and their bar of their physical abilities. And we also remove a lot of the bullshit that they're told. A lot of times they come in, well, I got a degenerative disc and I have herniations and I have, dysfunctional whatever. Well, no, you don't. And everyone focuses on the things they can't do, and we show them what they can do.
Amazing. And that really is right in the brand. I never really thought uh, that hard about your brand that you're, they always say the therapy you can do yourself is usually the best therapy, because that's the constant one, the moving around, the stretching, the strength training, the mobility stuff. And that's one thing you've preached even when you've helped me, is that I can only do so much for you. It's the constant work that you do outside of that. Me seeing you once a week or twice a week is just the scratching the surface, right? So you're teaching the concept of movement. Movement is life. It is blood flow. It's everything. And teaching them to do all the things to help themselves, because you don't want to keep them as a patient forever. You really want to take somebody, help them get better, teach them the skills they have, and then see them once in a while after that if they have a slip up or a fall or a tweak in their neck or whatever it is.
I mean, the reason why we get into this is to help people and get them to where they want to be,
Yeah.
not make them dependent on us forever. That's not the point.
Yeah.
And I know there's lots of business models that kind of, that's what they create. Oh, you need to see me 3 times a week for the next 2 years. Well, that doesn't make sense. Like, what if I'm better in 2 weeks? But I need to keep coming to see you? Like, that's nonsense. You can rake in a ton of dough doing that, but you're not doing the client any favors, and you're instilling a lot of fear and dependency, and they're never really going to truly get better.
No. Yeah. So there's that's one thing that I think any business listener or younger person coming up that wants to be into entrepreneur, just providing value and doing what's right will take you a lot further. And I think will make you more money anyways in the long run, because people want to be around that. They can sense it. I can hear when you're saying right now that you passionately care about people and servicing them. It's not just about money, and you can see it in the brand, and you practice what you preach more than anybody that I know, man. And you're constantly putting out that value as well. Like, you're constantly giving out information for free on your social media.
Yeah. It's because a lot of the things, oh, I got a tight neck or I got a tight back. I'm like, well, that's just tightness. That's just a signal saying something might be a little off kilter. Something might be a little bit weak. Try these things. And if it fixes it, great. You don't need to see me for a 1 hour assessment to find out that, this glute tightness is because your foot's not working, or, you can't bend the hip. But if I can teach people how to do that, great. But if they have an injury or they can't figure it out, we need to dive deeper into an assessment. Okay, fine. You've tried all the free stuff. It's helping a little bit, but it's not really getting to root cause. Okay, come on in, right? We'll get to root cause and we'll get to it faster. But I don't want people to get to the point of, I've ignored this for so long and I'm going to still continue to do this. And now all of a sudden I tore something. Now I need to rehabilitate rather than do prevention, rather than, the signal in my body, that pain is purely a signal saying something is wrong, right? Back pain. Okay. It's not the back's fault, but energy is accumulating into the back. You're overusing that area. Maybe because the hip's not rotating, maybe because the hip's not extending, maybe the ankle's not moving, or maybe you got an old whiplash injury that you can't rotate through the neck. So now you're rotating through your lower back. So that rotation or that energy's got to go someplace. And the pain signal is just a signal. And we're really good at using all of our special tests to diagnose, oh, well, we got ligament this or muscle that, or this is torn. Great, that's easy. But why did that happen? If you don't look at the body as a system to see, hey, you know what, your thoracic spine isn't rotating. That could be why you might be rotating and banging up that low back of yours. Let's fix that and then see what happens. And when you add the right stimulus to the body, the nervous system is amazing because it's a feedback system. All of a sudden you apply something that the nervous system feels safe and it liked, all of a sudden it's going to give you movement back. All of a sudden, oh, wow, my shoulder feels better. Well, I didn't do anything to the shoulder. I just changed the input to the system. And the system says, yes, I liked what you did. I'm going to take the brakes off that now.
Yeah. And that's something I've suffered with. You've shown me that many times, my shoulder problems or my hip flexor problems or psoas muscle problems usually we think was coming from my neck, right? So it's all these things that a lot of people, going back to you basically just described what I consider the greatest business model in humankind, which is take one customer, do what's right, and do such a good job they have no choice but to tell someone else. Where a lot of people, the old school mentality is find someone that you said and try to keep them here for a year. And how much money can I get an extra dollar out of them somehow? And the new in 2020 and moving forward, I think the new business model, especially in the information age where people can go and read reviews and leave Google reviews and comment on your social media. If you take someone and you change their life and you do a good job, they're going to tell everybody. They become your super fan. And now you've got 10 new customers just because you did what was right. You don't need to just stranglehold people, right? Just do what's right. And those people will be your super fans and you'll have more business.
Yeah. And one of the things, we pride ourselves on being that facility, that clinic where everyone's seen everyone else. Like, we heard about you and, I saw this person, blah, 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 blah. And now this is kind of like our last resort. And because we do such a thorough job of history taking, I ask moms, for example, any babies? Well, yeah, my baby's 18 years old. Okay, well, what was labor like? What trauma? Did you have any urinary incontinence, any urinary frequency? Well, yeah, I had it then. I was like, what about now? She's like, well, I have urgency. I'm like, that's a pelvic floor problem. Like, no wonder you have a hip impingement, because you're so good at compensating. You're now using your hip flexors and hamstrings and adductors to try and stabilize the hip. So I'm like, okay, we need to see a pelvic floor therapist. We need to make sure that pelvic floor is working. And then once it's all dialed up, okay, great. Now the exercises that you've been doing are going to work.
Yeah.
A lot of it's investigation and question. It's asking the right questions. But then it's a lot of listening, because the client will tell you what is wrong through a thorough history before I even touch them. I already know what's going on. And then I'm going to use posture and movement analysis and then special tests to diagnose, well, here's the tissue that's being traumatized, but over here is probably the cause.
Yeah. You know what I adore about you so much, man, is not only do you practice what you preach, but you're always expanding into biohacking and human optimization. And you know how much that physical pain can come from mental stuff or things that happened in the past. And you're not like a regular therapist. You are at another level. And I want to talk more about that. But something I really want to talk about right now is a little bit on the business side before we jump into the human optimization, because you have built a physiotherapist empire and a name for yourself that you obviously, I know you're very proud, but I want to remind you how proud you should be of that. And you have a great team around you. So tell me just a little bit about the history, because everybody in town knows concept of movement. They know Tom, they know the guy doing the handstands and the muscle ups and very, movement oriented. But how did you get there? Like, tell us just a quick story coming up, how you got inspired to want to go into what you've done and then starting the business to where you're at now.
Yeah. So I think I went to school in the States as an athletic therapist, athletic trainer. So I did that down there. So I've always been athletically inclined, or just, I loved human movement and just playing all things. And then I knew that I wanted to move higher into higher assessments and a higher degree. So moving into the physical therapy or physiotherapy realm gave me that. But it gets so segregated, as physiotherapy has now been pushed into lots of really cool stuff like IMS and acupuncture and manipulation and all these manual techniques. But I feel we've lost our way as a profession, that we're not really movement experts anymore. We've kind of pushed that to the side, and both are, you need to combine the two worlds to be super, super effective, as I said before, because you can be, a movement enthusiast or a personal trainer or a strength coach, but if something isn't working, we need to have some form of assessment on the front end to find out, why isn't this working? So basing it from that model, pulling in all of these different kettlebells and gymnastics and manual therapy and PRT and osteopathic, that created the model, right? So it was kind of like, I liked all these systems, but I found a lot of them were incomplete. And then I pulled what I thought was best out of those, created this kind of, okay, here's how we reset the system in various ways. And then we're going to integrate new movement, and then we're going to load it up. Once you can find the right people around you who have that same mindset, life gets easy. And from a business perspective, we've struggled. We've had our growing pains of like, we've got staff and then staff leave, and it just wasn't the right fit, right? They kind of struggled in the business side of things, because it's almost like they didn't understand the movement side. Everyone's very fixed on, I want to do physiotherapy. I want to do manual therapy. I want to do all this stuff. Well, that's great. But if you don't know the other half, then those clients aren't getting better and they're not sticking around. So when it comes to the business, it was almost like, if we create this, if people are aware of what we do, and if they're running on the same, if they're on your bus, they're on your bus. It's easy. You don't have to try and convince people to be there. And we struggled in the past with some staff of, we got to try and convince them, hey, this is what we need to do to be excellent. And they just didn't buy in. So they didn't stick around, right? It just became a struggle on both ends. And we quickly learned, okay, you can't force, or you can't try and convince somebody to be on your bus. If they already want to be there, great. You just have to tell them where you're going.
Yeah.
So now we're, from where we are at year 8, we've got great leaders in our organization now that they help us manage and keep everybody moving in the same direction. So, because we're up to 17 staff. So it's
Wow.
hard for Kelly and I to try and sit down with every single person. Like, hey, here's what we're doing. Here's where we're going. Because then now our week is full of meetings.
Yeah.
So now we have 3 leadership people. We have a clinic director, we have a head movement coach, and we have a head admin that now we have our meetings and then they relay the information. And it just creates this cohesiveness amongst the other team members. Now everybody's on board and everyone can now move in the same direction. We've just learned this probably in the last year and a half. So
Okay.
rather than trying to force and convince people to work for you, it's best to find the ones who are like-minded, that they want to be there already, and then they really want to learn what you do.
Of course. Yeah. Yeah. It's hard to get people that want to be in conjunction with parallel to where the direction you're trying to go in and the message you're trying to put out there, and not just show up just for the paycheck. Right. And it's hard to find a good physio. It's really hard to find people that are passionate and do it themselves. A lot of people go to school, they get the information, but they're not implementing it on their own level. Right. So I can only imagine that that's difficult, because you're treating people that have chronic problems and injuries, and you want to make sure that they're getting the service that you want, that you're trying to provide straight from your heart. Right.
Yep. And coming back to, I can't remember what I was going to say there.
Well, where I want to jump is the thing that I think that's so exciting is you've set yourself up in a position now where a lot of pro athletes and a lot of high quality, different types of athletes are coming to you for advice on a regular basis. You have some NHL players, all different facets of sports. And that's a direct correlation of the information that you've put out and how you practice what you preach, and, where you've set yourself up. You're always excelling. You just didn't come out of school, and you're always getting new certificates. So I feel like you have some of the same qualities as some of these pro athletes do, because I see you excel. Like, you could easily step back and let the business take on itself, but you're constantly expanding on social media. You're constantly taking on new certificates, putting on workshops, thinking outside of the box and expanding and pushing yourself forward. You're not just complacent where you are. So it's a trait that you have along with them. What is a common trait that you see with these NHL players, pro athletes, or even amateurs trying to turn pro? What is like some common traits you see in their mindset and their practice?
They want to learn. So I've been fortunate with the athletes I've received. They are open books. They're open to try different things, new things than what they have been taught in the past. But I think they also come in with the mindset that if they are working with me, that Tom does, I do things very differently. And it's not just the physicality of it. I've got them doing cold plunges and breath work and recovery. Like, we focus a ton on recovery. But every time they come in, before they start moving, they do a self-assessment. They do a self-check-in. They check their vestibular, their balance system. They check their cerebellum. They check, can they touch their toes? Can they backbend? Any pinchiness? What are their hips doing? What are their shoulders doing? And if something is off, they now know, oh, you know what? My shoulder's not internally rotating. Those corrective exercises that Tom showed me for my T-spine, that freed it up. Now they can start to fix themselves before it becomes an injury. Because if they leave that problem or that imbalance in there, and we start doing push-ups and ring work and all kinds of explosive stuff, well, that may precipitate into an injury, and now they're out. So with my athletes, they all want to have the best tools in their toolkit to self-manage, to self-regulate. Okay. And a lot of them, they can go and train themselves now. Like, the ones who've been with me for a few years, they know what to do. But they keep coming back because I keep showing up with new strategies and new techniques and a better way to do it, because I'm constantly evolving. And if you're not evolving, then you're dying. It's simply, there's no such thing as staying even keel. I'm just going to coast. No, if you think you're coasting, you're actually degrading. You got to get a little bit better every single day. And if you're not stressing yourself that 0.01%, then your body's going to get complacent, and it's going to just start to like, well, you're not stressed out anymore. There's no need to grow. So I'm just going to start flushing things down the toilet. And myself, if I'm not checking in with myself of, can I do these set points of movement? I need to make sure I build my training back up so I get to them.
Yeah. And I honestly, Tom, too, I think just being in your presence, you have a good energy that comes off you too, right? So I'm sure that helps them be more confident in what they're trying to do. So it's not just about the technique. I think it's the person behind the technique, and how you apply it as well. And one thing I really love about what you do is, I'd be thrown in this category too. When you're somebody trying to come up, you just think I can work harder. I can push through it. You're
Mhm.
not as concerned about recovery. You're not concerned about your breath work and your meditation. And you just think I can outwork everybody and I can outwork everything. And this is a common trait you see in entrepreneurs and pro athletes and everybody. And you kind of take a step back and say, yeah, we're going to work hard. And you can see this in all your methods that you do, but you're also giving them the confidence that it's okay to back off and it's
Mhm.
okay to think outside the box and do different types of movements and recover and make sure you feel good and have fun doing it. Looks like you guys have a lot of fun doing what you're doing. Like it doesn't look just like a work camp, like you're just here to train till you puke. Like you guys are laughing, you're enjoying yourself, and then you're taking time to breathe and you're meditating and you have them doing grounding. And I think that's a different approach than what a lot of people are used to coming up in some of these training camps.
Yeah. So, the mentality of, I'll use one of my athletes. He's a professional kickboxer, and those guys, Muay Thai, and those
Yeah.
guys are intense.
Yeah.
He came into me, he's got all these kind of nagging injuries and whatnot, and he was going to the Pan Am Games, and he's just like, yeah, I'm not happy until I'm a puddle of sweat and just puking, like after every workout. I
Yeah.
said, okay, so what does working out do? What does exercise do? It breaks us down. It causes
Yeah.
stress. And he's also, he was running a gym at the time. He's got kids. So I'm like, now your body and your nervous system does not care what kind of stress is. Stress is stress. You've
Yeah.
only got so much room in that stress cup before it overspills. And now you're beating your physical body to a pulp. And now you have to recover from that stress.
Yeah.
If you don't have the time to recover from that kind of workout, you don't do that kind of workout, because the point of training is to feel good and adapt. And I had him do a journal after every workout session. You're going to do a scale of 0 to 10 on your energy, your fatigue, your mood, and your stress levels. And he could quantify, what, my stress is high today, my sleep was crap, my mood is low. Great, guess what? It's a light day, right? So now we're taking what we feel and we're quantifying it. And I said, rather than beat yourself up on another workout, because it's not going to be productive, you're just going to dig yourself into a hole. You're going to do a lot of light stuff. You're going to do shadow boxing. You're going to do breath work. You're going to do mobility. And then tomorrow, when you wake up, you're going to gauge yourself again, and then you can crush it. So it's got
Yeah.
to be smaller increments over time. People are looking for training. I need this big spike in performance. Okay,
Yeah.
fine, but expect a big dip,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's going to go up, and then you got to recover from a ton of that stress. And it's going to take some time. And then we can build up, and then we got to come back down. Now, I would rather smaller increments on a more consistent line. And that entails one, self assessment, utilizing your recovery, and then add some play, right? Everyone talks about flow. I think flow, the flow state and using flow is kind of becoming like the word today. And I don't think a lot of people understand it. Like being in that flow state is it's a big mix of neurochemicals and different brain waves all happening at the same time. Stephen Kotler talks like that's his whole shtick, and
Yeah.
it's awesome, right? He talks about the neurochemistry and the neurophysiology of flow. But people don't understand how to get into flow, and the best way is actually play. Kids
Okay.
get into flow quickly through play. And if you
Yeah.
can create enjoyment in what you're doing and it becomes not work, well, it's very easy to get the mindset to move into that state. Now you're in flow, your concentration is greater. Now you're going to get more output. Now, flow is expensive, right? You can only stay there for so long and then you have to back out. If you keep driving that system, you're going to keep burning up neurochemicals, and those you need to replenish those later. But if you bring in play back into the stress, it dampens that. You get that little shot of dopamine that buffers out that adrenaline, and now we can push a little bit more.
Okay.
So one of the first questions I ask the guys when they come off the season, I was like, did you have fun? Not how was the season? Did you have fun? And if they say, meh, okay, we need to find fun again. Because
Yeah.
if this isn't fun, this is a bunch of work that you're not going to enjoy.
Very
So
cool.
whether the first part of training is just a lot of game based, play based, I'm still sneaking in all the stuff I want to do, but I'm making it engaging in a way that they don't realize that they're doing work, but they're getting into a mindset of, oh, this is fun again, this is play, and I'm getting training out of it.
Very cool. And this is something that everybody from the janitor to an entrepreneur to a pro athlete should be implementing in their lifetime, because I suffer from this too, where I have a destination that I want to get to. And I'm very lucky to have, followed the type of people that I followed along the way to start implementing more things. And I do affirmations and meditation. And if I get all worked up about something that's going on in my entrepreneurial life, I'm able to get myself back to center. Some days I have worse days than other. But a lot of people are just so caught up in bad relationships, trying to raise the kid, a job they don't like, or working super hard, and they just apply more to it, and they never take the time to really enjoy or play. So how important do you see it just for a regular person even to implement something like this, making sure you're checking balances and saying, am I enjoying my time on a daily basis? Because when you replenish yourself, you can apply so much harder. And that's kind of what you're saying, even in a pro athlete, like we're taking a step back so we can go harder. And a lot of people aren't doing that in their regular life yet.
I think a lot of it is just mindfulness. A lot of people are just mindlessly moving through their day, and they're just like, I got to grind, I got to get this next thing done. I got to get this next thing done. Rather than step back, take a breath, be like, okay, what's happening here? How am I feeling? Checking in with your state of being can really give you quick insight as to how are you responding to the external or internal environments that you're feeling. And if you're constantly ignoring that, just like, oh, I'm going to ignore this shoulder pain with some Advil, I'm just going to mask it with something else. Well, it will eventually turn into a tear, or you will eventually burn out. So your nervous system will stop you in your tracks over time. You can only push so hard so long before you need to recover that nervous system. The nervous system controls everything. Your brain controls everything. And if you think you can outperform your brain, your nervous system, if it feels threat, if it feels like, you know what, I'm expending too many resources doing this thing, I'm going to hit the brakes. Simple as that. Either with sickness, with an injury, burnout, something is going to give.
There has to be a weak link in the chain somewheres, right? Whether it's even mentally, because people don't understand. And this, I think the most important part that anybody's going to get out of this. So a little bit about what I'm trying to do with the Limitless Ones, Toms, is to speak to people that are doing something extraordinary, something different. Because to be quite frank, people are fucked up right now, man. They're depressed. They're not happy with their job. They're not financially free. They're not healthy. They're not drinking enough water. They're not breathing well. And they're just not well. People aren't well right now. It's something like 82% of Canadians don't love their job. They're not happy with their lifestyle, and they don't see a way out. So where I'm trying to head with this is to try to be the person that's starting to convince people that there's a better way. And I think the foundation through this message that I'm always going to provide is, yes, we're trying to achieve financial freedom and convince people to do a job they love and that they can do a side hustle and eventually convert that into a business for themselves and be super happy. But I think the foundation is always going to be human optimization. And I don't know anybody that practices it better than you. So I think that the message we're going to provide today of the most value is human optimization and biohacking. And you practice it regularly. You're always studying. And I want to talk about breathing, water, sleep, hot and cold therapy, movement, flexibility, strength, just feeling well, being well, and meditation. I know you apply all these, and you probably have some stuff going on that I'm not even aware of. So let's start with what I think is the one thing that I implement every morning, which is Wim Hof's breathing method. I started doing this. I've always kind of practiced it. You taught me to breathe through my stomach instead of just in my chest. I mean, 5 or 6 years ago, going way back. And I never really implemented that until right around the same, I think a year later, I watched Wim Hof's on London Reel. And I really started practicing it. And this year I get up every morning around 4:30 in the morning. I drink a liter of water, and then I go to the floor and I do 3 rounds of 40 reps, holding in my breath, trying to get the CO2 out of my body, loading myself with oxygen. In my opinion, this is the one thing people should be doing. It's free, it's easy. And I mean, you can only go minutes without air. Let's talk a bit about breath work and how that could change people's lives. Because I really want to give people some nuggets today on little things that they could do. Like, let's talk about improving sleep. Let's talk about breath work, hot and cold therapy. These are free. They take a few minutes of time and they can really optimize your life, right? So let's talk about breath work.
Yeah, breath work is really the anchor to everything we do. So if you think about when we come into this world, what does baby first have to do? Take a breath.
Yeah.
Right. Breath is life. Breath is also movement. And if you look at any baby, breathing is also, it's reflexively driven, but it's also in our conscious control. You don't have to think about breathing until I say, hey, what's your breathing doing? And then people are like, what is my breathing doing? So we can manipulate it. And what we know about breath is it directly influences our state. So meaning sympathetic, parasympathetic, it controls our nervous system, and it can control, and it creates a buffer, or it creates a pause to reaction, which is why people are just like, pause, take a breath, okay? Before you react, before you do this. All these ancient forms of exercise like Qigong and Tai Chi and yoga, martial arts, they all focus on breathing first, because breath power and efficiency comes from breathing. If you're holding your breath, you're not going to be efficient. You're going to create a lot of tension, you're slow, but also you're going to create a lot of metabolites and a lot of toxins and CO2 that's going to cause fatigue. So most people, if you look at how they breathe, they're apical, which means they're breathing up into here, and they're doing this all day. And my clients come in, I said, well, put one hand on your chest, one hand on your belly. Where are you breathing into? And 50% of the time they think they're breathing into the belly, and they're actually breathing up in here. So they don't have awareness of where they're breathing. So we have to bring in awareness as to what muscles are you using? And when people come in breathing like this, I ask them, do you know how many breaths you take in a day? About 25,000. So now you're doing 25,000 shrugs, and you wonder why you have headache and my neck is so tight. Well, no shit. You're doing 25,000 shrugs, and you're using muscles to help you breathe, and that's not the job. So that's kind of the mechanical part of it. But when we breathe from our diaphragm, it puts us into more of a parasympathetic state, right? So for those of you who don't know, sympathetic, so the nervous system is composed of the central nervous system and autonomic. And the autonomic is then subcategorized into sympathetic, parasympathetic. Sympathetic is that fight or flight stress state, and parasympathetic is the rest and digest relaxation state. And this is very much controlled by our breathing. If I'm breathing like this all day through my mouth, I am sending a signal to my subconscious to get ready to run away from imaginary tigers, because I need to over-oxygenate to prepare to run. Now, on the back of your ribs sit all these sympathetic ganglion. So the sympathetic nerves that send signals to our brain, they all sit in our rib cage. So when we're overstimulating them, that's sending a signal to the brain to say, oh, we got to mobilize. Now, if I take the tension and movement out of my ribs and I bring it into my diaphragm, now the diaphragm moves up and down in a relaxed state. That's now going to stimulate the phrenic nerve, okay, and that'll cause that's the direct link from diaphragm to brain, but also the vagus nerve. So the vagus nerve is that longest nerve in our body, and it connects gut and brain, but it's regulated through breathing. So you can stimulate the vagus nerve, and it's very simple. All you have to do is a double exhale. So if you do a longer exhale, the heart rate relaxes, more blood goes to the heart, and that in just an exhale, we go parasympathetic. When we inhale, sympathetic. It's very mild. But if we're doing twice as long inhale, that's driving up the system. And that's where most people are. The best way to do that is just breathe through your nose through the day. Pay attention, breathe through the nose. When I'm got my mouth, even the reflex from the jaw is signaling stress to the amygdala, to the lower brain center, that we need to suck in more air for an emergency. But if I breathe through my nose, it's a smaller hole, it ventilates, and it forces the diaphragm to work harder. So now it becomes more the diaphragm's job. And that shifts us into that parasympathetic state. I think that's where most people fall short, is their breathing, and how we do it and our rate and our rhythm has a huge influence. There's so many different ways. You talk about Wim Hof, and that's a great energy booster. Okay. Yeah. But if you do that too often, you can tax out the system. Okay. Because you're driving up the sympathetics. You're driving adrenaline, noradrenaline, and you're creating this hyperoxygenation. That makes you feel boom, right? Yeah. Yeah. But if we do that too often, just like being in flow, it can get expensive. We might be driving that system too much, and then all of a sudden we tax things out. The best way, we talk about energy conservation. The best way to energy conserve is breathe through the diaphragm regularly through the day, only through the nose, in through the nose, out through the nose, quietly. Biohacking Method is a great way to do this. A good book that I recommend to people is The Oxygen Advantage by Patrick Mcewen. He teaches the Biohacking Method. It's only nasal breathing. And that's kind of where we want to live. Even when we're doing exercise, I my athletes, if I catch them breathing through their mouth, I have them put water in their mouth. Okay, finish that sled pull. You can only breathe through your nose, because if you can breathe through your nose, you're getting the respiratory muscles to pick up and catch up to the musculoskeletal system.
Yeah.
Because
we've
if you're
evolved to
doing
mouth
that,
breathing, right? Like
yeah,
naturally we're supposed to be nose breathers, and it actually reduces CO2 in the blood. Like there's a lot of stuff that
yeah,
happens through breathing through your
you get
nose,
you
right?
get a nitric oxide boost, and
Yeah.
it causes, because you'll have a little bit more CO2 in the system, and the CO2 is a molecule that causes or signals the hemoglobin to release oxygen. If we
Okay.
hyperoxygenate too often, we've got too much oxygen. There's an imbalance. We're blowing off
Yeah.
too much CO2. CO2 is actually the molecule that signals oxygen to be released to the cells. But if we have too much
Okay.
oxygen, hemoglobin latches onto oxygen because its CO2 is not there. And it's just like, well, we've got too much oxygen. We don't need to release this. But then what do? Hyperventilate some more. So
Yeah.
my point of this is people aren't aware that they're doing hyperventilation all day, and they're not
Yeah.
CO2 tolerant. We need to actually increase tolerance to CO2, not increase CO2, but increase our tolerance to it.
The tolerance to it. So most people are going to listen to this and they're going to like, okay, I'm going to be conscious. And then a stressful email is going to come through. The kid's going to be pulling on their pant leg. And then the day goes on and they're going to lay back in bed and say, holy shit, I forgot all about that again. So would you suggest, how do they implement this into their life, like with little practice? Because we're saying now that obviously with like when you're saying too much of doing something like Wim Hof does, what would you consider too much? Would you consider practicing that once a day too much, or would you consider it not doing it multiple times a day? Like for them to take at a certain point in their day to say, okay, I'm going to take 10 minutes to myself. I'm stressed out. It's 2:00 at the office. Instead of reaching for a cookie and a coffee, would you suggest that maybe taking a few minutes to do a little bit of breath and lay back in your chair could maybe make you mindful, that recharge you, get your body loaded up and then ready to go? Would you think that would be okay?
Yeah, check in every hour, right?
Yeah.
And I lean, obviously, I lean more into kind of the calming states of breathing, of breath work.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
Dr. Huberman, he talks about a double inhale and a prolonged exhale. So it's a double sniff and a very long exhale. Because when we're in exhale, we're actually we're dumping out a little bit of CO2, but we're also
Yeah.
pushing ourselves into a parasympathetic state. So that stimulates
Yeah.
that parasympathetic state.
Yeah.
Doing a 3-second inhale, a 6-second exhale. So again, we're using rate and rhythms to kind of control our state. Box breathing works great. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds hold, 4 seconds out, 4 seconds hold. That'll calm the monkey mind. There's 4, 7, 8. So it's a 4-second in, 7-second hold, 8-second out. So you can see all the relaxation breathing techniques. It's
Yeah.
a longer exhale. And it's actually tolerating, you're actually boosting up the CO2 in your blood a little bit, because when CO2 goes up, nitric oxide is produced. And we
Okay.
know that nitric oxide is a relaxation molecule. It causes
Yeah.
vasodilation, it causes expansion, and it decreases the stress on the arteries.
Yeah.
So we can't produce nitric oxide without CO2 signaling.
Well, I just
So
feel like this is something we need to talk about more. Like in general, like this needs to be leading the way with, especially with everything that's going on in the world right now, because it's like you can't even go a minute or two without air. You can go 4 or 5 days without water, weeks without food, but nobody's talking about this. And what's the first thing, if someone's in a stressful environment and then they walk out and they close the door behind them without even consciously thinking about it, subconsciously they go, and it's like a decompression and their body's begging them for it. So this is like a free practice that I think more people should be implementing on a daily basis. Just get some breath work under control, paying attention to your breathing. And I think this could be implemented to everybody to just excel our health. I think that's like the number one thing, like over a diet or anything, is just focusing on your breath.
yeah, because you look at basic needs as an organism, right? Our nervous
Yeah.
system has two reasons: survival of the individual, survival of the species. That's it. And then you can
Yeah.
break it off into all these other subcategories.
Yeah.
And breathing is number one. We cannot go 3 to 5 minutes, depending on your tolerance, without breathing, or we die. The next thing is we can't go more than 3 to 5 days without water, right? Then after that, sleep. Sleep
Yeah.
is the maximum amount of time that someone has sleep deprived themselves is 10 days, and then they died,
Yeah.
because you're knocking out your immune system, and the organs, just everything shuts down. And then
Yeah.
food, we can go anywhere, depending on our fat stores, we can go anywhere from 20 to 30 to 60 days without food. So
No
when we're
problem.
looking
Yeah.
at overall health, what is our priority? Breath. Okay,
Yeah.
get our breathing dialed in. Next, we got to make sure we're drinking good, clean water. Okay. Got to stay hydrated, 70% water, right?
Yeah.
And we need water. And it's not just water. We need water with minerals because we're bioelectrical, right? If we're just drinking pure water but all the minerals are taken out, well, you don't have those electrolytes to create the signaling, to create those electrical signaling across cell membranes, across neurons. So if we deplete ourselves of, good mineral water or minerals in general, we can kill ourselves with drinking too much water, hyponatremia, right? Have heart attack.
Yeah.
So we dilute all the minerals. And then you got to go look at sleep. Most people are sleep deprived. A lot of people are, they're working on 6.5 hours, and then you got shift workers.
Let's talk about sleep. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about two things. What are some of the things people can do on a daily basis in getting closer to bedtime? We all know, put away your cell phone or wear blue blocking lights, maybe a little bit of breath work, meditation. But do you have any little hacks to improve sleep or to track sleep? What people can start to implement that's low cost that can make a huge impact on their life?
Yeah, so there's a few apps. I use Sleep Cycle app. If you're looking to track your sleep, it's just you can put your phone on the side of your bed. It acts like an alarm clock. I really like it. It's not going to be super accurate, but it'll wake you up when it starts to pick up sounds. So it'll wake you up at between a time when your circadian rhythm is starting to pick up, right? When you start to become more restless. It kind of picks up noises and it kind of gives you a rough track of, are you in deep sleep? Are you in REM sleep? I don't know. But I use the Oura Ring on a regular basis to see what affects my sleep. It's a little bit more costly, but it's well worth it in my opinion.
Yeah.
But the number one thing that keeps coming across my radar with regards to regular sleep is keeping a regular schedule. So even if you go to bed late one night, you still wake up at the same time. Because it's a hormonal signaler. And if we sleep in, we're kind of moving across time zones and we're signaling hormones to switch on and off at the wrong times. And it's that hormone dysregulation that really causes a lot of problems with us. To reset the hormones is getting light exposure first thing in the morning, sunlight, 15, 20 minutes, walking outside, no sunglasses, but before 9 a.m. Okay. I think before 10, I think is okay. But you need that early sunlight in the eyes to reset the circadian rhythm and reset that circadian clock. And then at the end of the day is, again, getting outside when the sun is going down for 15, 20 minutes, sunlight, not directly in the eyes, but showing that the sun is starting to kind of come over the horizon. And that signals the clock to start creating melatonin.
Okay.
So light signals are key. Dr. Huberman, he talks a lot about that. And it's keeping a regular schedule. Now, it might be difficult for some people to keep a regular schedule. And like you said, eliminating, blue lights, even just the height of lights. If you got desk lamps, apparently that's better because it's more at the horizon. So it's still signaling the brain that, sun is setting. But if you've got a vertical light over your bed, because it's like noon, it's being perceived as it's noon right now, it can still inhibit some of that melatonin production. So the light signaling is actually a key thing. So you have a few things. Exercise and food are the other two things that will regulate sleep rhythms. I use intermittent fasting. I don't eat usually till around 11, 12 some days, but it also depends on how much sleep I got the night before, right? Because fasting is stress. So food is a signaler saying, we're eating food. It's time to kind of upregulate some of those hormones, which will create more wakefulness. And then exercise. So avoiding food and avoiding exercise at least 3 hours before bed to give your body some time to digest and dampen out that cortisol is key. So light, food, and exercise are your what they call them zeitgebers. They're timekeepers.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've just covered breath and now we're covering sleep. I feel like people are already getting a little bit healthier. So let's talk a little bit about, I'm going to have some dietitians and my doctor coming on and stuff to talk really about nutrition and different supplementation that we should be looking at. So I really want to maximize our time because we've already hit just past 40 minutes. Hot and cold therapy. Not everybody has access to hot therapy. Not everybody has a sauna. Not everybody can, you can take a hot shower, but that's all we're going to do so much. We do know there's benefits with the heat, obviously, but if they don't have access, everybody can take a cold shower.
Yeah.
So I mention this to people all the time, and they look at me like I'm crazy, man. They're like, a cold shower. They're like, what do you mean? And like, people can't,
Yeah.
we're just as humans. You think about that, how sensitive we are, that you can't even handle 10 seconds under cold water, and we're like panicking and jumping out. Where meanwhile, our ancestors, not much more than 100 years ago, were climbing Rocky Mountains and, fighting off bears and tigers and swimming in cold water and fishing. And now people, you can't even take a 10-second shower. So let's talk about some of the benefits of just jumping into some cold therapy. Because I see you out getting in the hot tub with the kids, and then you're challenging them to jump in the snowbank, and you guys are having a great time, right? So talk about where they could implement that and why they should at least try it on a daily basis.
Yeah. So part of it is going to be stress management. I find the big component to it, you're going to get a lot of physiology from it. You're going to get cold shock proteins, and you're going to convert white fat to brown fat, and you're going to increase mitochondrial density and all these things. But I find the main thing is if you can expose yourself to that external stressor and you can manage it, when you get out, your stress, because you've pushed your threshold so much higher, any of those little things that you thought were stressful, you're like, this doesn't bother me anymore, because you've elevated the bar of stress. We're so used to being comfortable that everyone's so sensitive of like, oh, I'm stressed. I'm like, well, is it? Well, I mean, stress is very subjective, and it's individual. But if you have a higher threshold, that means you can handle more before your nervous system starts to freak out. And if you can maintain your state and not get into freak out mode, well, you can recover better. You can now manage yourself better. You manage your emotions better. You manage your energy better. So I find when we expose ourselves to cold, and we can best do this through breath work. So this is where the Wim Hof Method comes into play. So you can amplify that stress response. You're boosting your immune system when you're actually doing Wim Hof, because you're imposing a stress, but you can impose too much if you're not ready for it. So doing a little Wim Hof breath before getting in the cold, you've already ramped up your nervous system to anticipate more stress, and then you can calm your breathing down to manage it.
Okay.
So cold shower, put your feet in the water, right? Just let the water hit your feet and your hands, and then up your legs. And then you can kind of build up to it every day a little bit. And if you don't want to dunk yourself in a cold shower right away, you can, put yourself in a hot shower and then back it off a little bit, get comfortable. You're like, oh, this isn't too bad. And you can kind of slowly, what I call, you're going to lobster yourself. So you don't want to throw lobster in scalding hot water because they freak out. But if you slowly turn up the temperature, they don't recognize it before you boil to death. You're going to do the opposite with yourself. You're going to slowly turn down the temperature of the shower to a point you're like, okay, this is comfortable. I can do my breath work. So it's just like adding weight to the bar. Don't put 300 pounds on the bar. Start with 50, and then you add 5 pounds 1 week, and then 5 pounds the next. And then by the time you're like, I can bench press 300 pounds. Okay. So you can do that. Another way you can do it is you crank it all the way cold, or you turn on the shower. And now there's a delay with some of the showers. It takes like 60 seconds before my shower gets cold, or before it gets hot. So I'll turn it on and you jump in, but it's going to end soon. So you sit there and you do breath work, right? You're in the cold shower. You're like, okay, the hot's coming soon. The hot's coming soon. And then all of a sudden it starts to warm up. And then even just that mild increase in temperature, you're just like, oh, that's way better than what it was. And then it goes hot. And then all of a sudden it's too hot. And then you go back down.
Yeah.
So the idea is you're setting a bar of stress. You're managing it for a period of time. You back off. You're like, that wasn't too bad. I can go there again. And over time, you start to teach your brain, oh, this is our new normal. This is what we're going to do. All right, we can deal with this.
Yeah. So we've just taught people to breathe a little bit better, to take some practice on trying to sleep a little bit better. Now we're saying these are all free things, by the way. These are all things that you can do. And you guys have just improved your health dramatically in this last 45 minutes. Let's talk about getting control of your thoughts and your mindset. And I know as a physiotherapist, this isn't practical talk that you guys would talk about, but I think a lot of people's tight shoulders, tight neck, tight lower back is this, man. Like their relationships aren't well. They're stressed out about their kids. Maybe there's a problem there, their work, whatever the problem is, especially today, everybody's just like this and they're tense. Let's talk about implementing some type of visualization or like manifestation or meditation. I mean, they're all kind of different things, but they're kind of getting control of your thoughts. How important do you see it for people just to take 10 minutes to themselves to just start to focus on the things that really matter and getting rid of all the clutter.
Yeah. So, a lot of that people are going to say, well, that's easier said than done. And
Yeah,
it's really
true.
difficult to control the mind with the mind. And
Yeah,
a lot of people come in, yeah, you have these physical injuries, but then when you start going into the history, it's like, okay, well, there's some emotional trauma there, or there's some relationship trauma here. There's not a support system at home, or you're stressed out because you're now caring for your elderly parents and you don't have any time for yourself. And it happens a lot, right? And then all of a sudden it comes back to, I got pain everywhere. Okay. That's not an orthopedic injury. That's an
yeah,
internal state, and it's an alarm system saying that we're under stress, but it's going to create this physical pain to bring it to a level of awareness that the person can now perceive. The pain, just like I said before, the pain is just a signal saying something is wrong in the system. We don't know what. We don't know if it's from trauma or emotional trauma, physical trauma, whatever, but there's something that the system is unhappy with. So it's going to create tightness and protect and guard. That's its job, protect.
okay,
It's hard to control mind with mind. Um, it's an easier route if we go back to look at how your breathing is. Our breathing changes with every state we're in. If you think about when I'm happy, my breathing changes. When you're
yeah,
sad, your breathing changes. When you're angry, your breathing changes. It's a two-way street. It's conscious and unconscious. So if you're in a state of stress, your breathing's changing. Now, I can't control how I feel in that moment because it's hard to control mind with mind. You can sit there and you're like, no, this is not a big deal. This is not a big deal. Really hard to do, especially when your subconscious brain is like, nope, I disagree. This is a big deal. Yep. You can consciously say, yeah, everything is good, everything is happy, but if your subconscious
yeah,
is like, oh, fuck that, no, I'm unhappy. You can't trick your
yeah,
brain,
yeah,
but you can take control of your state by going internal, and the best way to do that is through breathing.
breathing.
Right?
Yeah,
If you pay attention to how you're breathing, your breathing's gonna be like, oh, my breathing is really erratic right now. Okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna go 3 seconds in, pause, 6 seconds out, and we're gonna do that for 5 minutes. And there's an interesting study with that 3 second in, 1 second pause, 6 second out. Doing that for 5 minutes actually reduces your cortisol for up to 40%, and that lasts for 4 hours a day. Now you do that
wow,
3 times in a day, and you've managed and you've taken down your cortisol dramatically.
yeah,
But
yeah,
it's just checking in, and it's lowering your bar before threshold of stress. So cold showers will bring our bar up, but breath work will pull us away from that threshold altogether.
this would be good for weight loss as well then, because a lot of people, their cortisol is so high, it's messing up their insulin system and everything, right? So
Yep. As soon as cortisol goes up, insulin goes through the roof. Why do people crave
yeah,
sugar? Because it's quick energy to run away from the tiger.
yeah,
I need that quick burst. Cortisol's telling me to, burn up muscle and store fat, but I need glycogen, I need glucose real quick to run away from this. And
yeah,
if cortisol, we know, you and I know that weight loss actually has to do more with mental state as well as, stress. The exercise is good. It's going to boost metabolism and give us that metabolic engine. But if you're not sleeping right, if you're in a stressed out state, if you're insulin sensitive, weight's not going to go in the right direction. It's just not.
no, 100%. And the message now is just focus on like calories in versus calories out. And yeah, that's great for someone that's a well-functioning human, but there's not too many people are these days. Most people,
Yeah.
their hormones are messed up, they're
Yeah.
stressed out. So let's lead into what I feel like you're the king in, which is movement. Because
Sure.
people don't know how much extra. There's people out there right now, Tom, that are doing an hour on the Stairmaster. They're
Yeah.
working out for 90 minutes. They're
Yeah.
starving themselves to death to try to
Yeah.
lose this weight. Uh, some people are just in pain. They don't know how much to exercise. And I think it's important to realize what's sustainable for you. I like to work out twice a day because to me it's like a therapy thing,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
I don't mind putting in the work. I do enjoy working hard, but I've backed off on myself. I'm learning to love myself and not just grind myself into a powder all the time. What should people be doing? Let's talk for a mediocre type person. Should they be exercising every day? Should there be movement involved every day? What should that look like for somebody that just wants to be pain free, lose the weight, and be healthy?
Yeah. The main thing for that, for longevity, it's interesting because the research shows that if you have an 8-hour job where you sit on your butt for 8 hours, going to the gym and doing a 1 hour workout almost does nothing to negate that,
Wow.
right? You might as well not even gone to the gym at all because
Wow.
it's not enough. Now, what they found is if you implement 60-second little micro workouts, 60 to 90 seconds every hour periodically through the day from like a total of 4 to 8 minutes, that will counteract the 8 hours of sitting.
Okay.
Okay. So now, because you have these micro workouts, our bodies work better intermittently and sporadically through the day rather than one big bout. Because, and this is from a longevity. If you've got higher goals of, I want to deadlift this and I want to lift this and I want to, muscle.
Yeah.
That's different.
Yeah.
We're looking at feeling good, moving good, and longevity. That is the minimum. And then it's, 15, 20-minute walks outside in the sunshine. That's it. Okay. But that will make you feel good. But we also want to look good, and we also want longevity. And the number one thing that actually determines longevity is muscle mass. The more muscle you have that's correct to your body type, the longer you live. Muscle is metabolically expensive. Your body is not going to waste calories on it if it's not being utilized. So it also improves our insulin sensitivity because those are also glycogen stores. If we have very little muscle and we're consuming sugar, where does that sugar have to go? Well, it's not allowed to be floating around. It's got to be converted to fat because it's too dangerous and it causes inflammation. Fructose, especially fatty liver disease. They're now looking at fatty liver disease from too much fructose as it's a protective mechanism because fructose, you've only got 200 grams of fructose stores in the liver, but as soon as it's full and there's more fructose, well, fructose can only go to the liver. Well, the body's got to convert it around the liver until it's ready to be utilized for fuel. So if you want to improve insulin sensitivity, we need resistance training. We got to build muscle.
Yeah.
Okay. So lifting things 2 to 3 times a week, doesn't need to be long. Going out for regular walks. You don't have to do sprints, although high intensity training is good. I do recommend people move fast at least once a week. Hill sprints, something quick to get those fast twitch fibers, but also that pushes our cardiovascular system kind of not red line, but close to, 90%, but then you back off really quick. That's how we're designed. Go red line for a second and then come right back down, but a ton of recovery. Not red line, which a lot of systems do. It's just like, let's just gas ourselves. How many reps and how much weight can we push in a certain amount of time? That is a quick way to an injury and metabolic burnout.
Buddy, I feel like we have people being extremely healthy with no cost right now. Like these are little things that they can implement that are free, right? Like these are a little bit of exercise, a little bit of breathing, taking a cold shower here and there, taking some time to control your thoughts.
But that's not sexy.
Have you thought about right?
That's not sexy. I want the sexy stuff. Tell me the supplements.
What
I want
pill?
a biohack.
Yeah, what pill?
I'm gonna go get saunas. I'm gonna go in a cold chamber at minus 223 degrees Fahrenheit.
Have you thought about putting together a program that includes all this stuff, like some type of like an ebook or something, or do you have anything like that now?
I'm in the midst of, I've already written out a couple outlines for some ebooks. It's just now putting aside the time and actually banging them out, because I'm really good at writing out outlines and coming up with titles for books, and I have the information, but I'm not really effective at, all right, let's sit down and just start emptying your brain on these papers. I've got, I'm doing a webinar today, and I've been doing more presentations. So of course, all that writing stuff keeps getting pushed to the side because of current stuff that I'm doing now. But it is in the work. Yes.
Yeah, I feel like there'd be like where you could talk about breathing, water, sleep, using hot and cold therapy, and some type of movement. And a great for become healthier for under $100 kind of tagline on it, right? Because this is something you could do for pretty much nothing. Everybody's got a cell phone to track their stuff. So where can people find you? Because people need to come find you. There's a lot of people locally that know you, but people should be following your Instagram because you're giving up tips and tricks on movement and tight this and tight that and different information and doing seminars. Where can people go to find you?
So our physical space is Concept of Movement here in Barrie. You can call and book an appointment there. I'll give you the information if you want to share that out on your feed. You can reach me. My Instagram is swales.tom. Concept of Movement also has an Instagram where we'll also share newsletters and whatnot. So that's at ComPhysio. My Facebook is Swales Performance Systems. And What else we got? And then, I have an education website. It's just tomswales.com. You can pick up free insights, news articles. You can sign up for my newsletter, which is anytime I post a new exercise, you'll get a notification of when it is. I also have workshops on how to fix your own shoulders, handstand workshop, and as well as a complete home training program. So I created an ebook with embedded videos. And it's a complete home training program. All you need is if you have a Swiss ball and a band, and I take people through, it's a 6-day-a-week program. It's broken up into fundamental practical strength days, as well as mobility balance core days. They're 20 minutes, anywhere from 10 to 20 minute workouts, 6 days a week. And you can progress, and it's all set up, but you're adding repetitions every week. You don't need more weight. You don't need to go and get some dumbbells. We teach you how to use your body weight, and then also how to progress and regress those movements.
Very cool. I'll make sure to put all those tags in there because people should be following what you're doing. And locally, everybody knows who you are anyway, but you're putting out a lot of good information for people all across Canada, all across the world that could benefit from following your social media, because that's what you're doing. You're providing value on a daily basis. So I end off my podcast now with 3 words, and I like people to kind of give me some feedback. So I'm going to give you 1 word at a time. There's 3 different words, 1 word at a time. You tell me the first thing that comes to mind.
All right.
Money.
Money. First thing, we'll come back to that one. I don't know that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
The most common answer is freedom. Freedom's what everybody says.
That is a good one. That's true.
That.
Why else do we do that? Yep. You know what?
Yeah.
Freedom is, that's true. Yep.
Freedom to invest, freedom to help who you want, freedom to travel where you want, and be as creative as you want, and be the human you want to be. That's what I like to think about money. It's all it is. It's a tool for freedom.
It's a tool.
Health.
Yeah. Health. Joy.
Joy. I love that. Dreams.
Attainable.
I love that. That one's probably my favorite that's ever been said so far, because that's the truth. Is it is obtainable. One thing I've learned over time, my dreams keep going to the next level, what I'm capable of. And I talk to people on a daily basis that have some type of vision. And then when you ask them about how they're going to do it, they kind of do this, right? Because they just don't think, they don't know how they're ever going to get there. So I'm doing everything I can in my spirit and my wheelhouse to try to encourage people, because that's what I want to do. I want people to be fucking excited about life, lit up, have a dream and start chasing it down. You've done that. You do it on a daily basis, and you're surrounded by, young boys that turned into these NHL players and kickboxers, and they're living out their dreams. So you're surrounded with it. So it kind of becomes normal in your world to see that. But there's so many people that are out there that are in, maybe they don't have the best parents. They're in their own little world and they just don't believe that their dreams are possible. And I'm trying to encourage children and adults to just start going after it, because what a better world to live in, to have people just feeling good about life and chasing something down,
Yeah. And just one last thing about parenting, people can blame their parents. Parents are doing the best that they can, that they know how, with the tools that they have.
100%.
Right?
100%.
I reflect on, my parents did a great job, right? Could they have done better? Yeah, but they didn't know any better. So I'm going to learn from what their mistakes were. And I'm going to do the best job I can to my kids. I'm going to make a ton of mistakes, and they're going to reflect on, well, dad screwed this up. Well, that's fine. I'm doing the best I can. So just be better. Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And this kind of one thing I always talk about is intentions. Like if you have, every time something happens, I always look, did that person have good intent? Like, did they actually mean to do something wrong? Like, did they actually look at the two? Well, I could do good or I could do bad. Well, screw this. I'm going to choose the bad. So really, if your parents brushed your teeth for you and they loved you, they pretty much did what their obligations were. And they're just passing on what they were taught. And one of my proudest things is I feel like I've been able to break the mold of where I come from and the stuff that I was taught. And I think that's what we should be trying to do, is take what we were given and move the ball forward a little bit, right? And hope that your children move the ball forward a little bit more.
Yep. That's it. And just hope that they find, I don't care what they do. I just want them to find something that makes them super happy and joyful. And
that's it, man.
That they have something to just work towards because they love doing it, not because of monetary means or because mom and dad did it. I don't really care. That's the last thing I want them to do, is feel like, well, I'm going to go be a physiotherapist because my dad was. No, if you don't love it, don't do it. Go do what you want.
100%. So that's, I think the school system's broken, and that parents need to take on that obligation is teach your kids to love themselves, find something that they love. And then, yeah, we're spiritual beings, but this is the car that moves us through life. So take care of it. Take care of this, take care of this, and be healthy, be well, and find something you love. And I think life can be pretty damn fucking good if you can find those few things, you know?
Yep.
Tom, thank you so much, bro. I think we provided a lot of value. I'm excited for everybody to see this. And I'm thinking after this, I feel like we just scratched the surface. So I'm thinking we need to get together and come up with an idea of whether we do a workshop for Barry or some type of a Q&A of some sort. I'm going to brainstorm some stuff. And I think maybe coming into the spring, whenever they lift the veil off of the country and we're able to get around and move, maybe we should put something together where we put some speakers together and just try to make the community a little healthier, you know, because you have some really good stuff. I know a few good people. I'll try to organize it. Maybe we can do something great. So thank you so much for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon, brother.
All right. Take care, bud.